news. I think there is getting to be some good news out there, but on the other hand, I'm afraid that once it's no longer sensational, that the regular news will disappear. And so tonight, for instance, I watched the news here, and most of it was about Libya, and they only had like one minute on the nuclear power plant in Japan.
So it's cooling down.
It's not, unfortunately, I don't know if the news in Japan is the same way, but here it's, whatever's the most sensational, and then they move on to something else.
Yeah, I think that in Japan the best source of information at the moment is the TV, but I haven't seen the TV for the last 2 days because of the place I moved. There is no TV, and internet is a little bit limited. Yeah, I wanted to ask you two more things. Continue with the radiation topic and a little bit about Chernobyl. Okay, but the radiation you were talking about the three types, right? So we've spoken so far about gamma radiation, the particular radiation, and the other one would be.
So there's two types of particular radiation.
Okay.
There's alpha and beta. And I'm actually going to do a little bit of studying because it's been a long time for me.
Yeah.
And give a more complete update this weekend on Evelyn's blog.
Yeah.
But the alpha particulate is essentially not much of a concern unless it's inhaled or ingested because it will not penetrate the skin.
Yes. Okay.
So I had mentioned in one of the updates that in the U.S. We in our houses we normally have basements.
Yes.
And radon is a radioactive gas that's a naturally occurring, comes out of the rocks here in the U.S.
All right.
And it's normal when you buy a house to have it tested for radon.
Oh, okay.
And if there's too much, you have to install a ventilation system to remove it. And why that's such a big concern is radon is an alpha emitter. And although it can't hurt you on your skin because it won't even go through the first layer, if you breathe it in, it gets in your lungs.
All right.
And you don't have that protection.
Okay. I see.
And the concern about all types of...
But it's like a gas?
Radiation.
It's like a gas or...
gas.
It's a gas, okay.
It's a gas.
Okay.
And the concern about that is a long-time exposure of breathing that in could cause cancer.
I see. But so
it's not going to kill. It's not like you're going to breathe it in and you're going to die. It's a long-term cumulative effect.
Oh, okay. Yes, you were saying
the beta is similar.
Yeah. Except
it does penetrate a little bit deeper, so it will go through the outer layer of your skin. But generally speaking, if you have clothing on and skin, it's not so much of a concern. It's did you get it in your eyes, or did you ingest it, or did you inhale it?
Yeah.
That makes it a concern. And again, that's why there would be one recommendation normally to evacuate up to a certain distance, shelter in place a little bit farther out.
I understand.
And like I said, I'm gonna do a little reading over the next day and give a more comprehensive update on Evelyn's blog because it's been many years.
I see.
I've actually had to do a lot of homework in the last week.
That's great. Thanks. So the Fukushima reactors are a source of these types of radiation. All three, right?
They are, yes.
I understand. So for example, the radioactive iodine and cesium, it's traveling through particles that it gets impregnated in dust or something, or it's just like the
So some of the radioactivity will be released in gaseous form.
uh-huh.
Some of it is microscopic particles.
Mm-hmm.
But all of it would be picked up by the wind and carried,
Mm-hmm.
some distance.
Yeah.
And of course, the farther it goes, the volume increases, so the concentration
Mm-hmm.
becomes lower.
I understand. So I understand. I believe that these airborne particles, they land somewhere in time due to gravity. Is
Yep,
that, and then they will pollute like the land and crops and everything, right? Within that 30
correct,
kilometer radius.
correct. So you were going to ask about Chernobyl. So
Yeah.
you probably know that for the area surrounding that plant
Yeah.
is still very contaminated,
Yeah.
and it's not possible for human beings to live there
Yeah.
on a long-term basis.
Yeah.
And again, in this instance, the release of radiation and radioactivity has been much lower.
Yeah.
The winds have been very favorable.
Mm-hmm.
So, without knowing any specific details,
Yeah.
I think the amount of land that will be problematic is probably relatively small.
I understand. But the thing,
and it may turn out that it's only the immediate area around the plant, but
okay,
we'll have to see if we get some data that we can look at.
Is there a way for another country to see the radiation levels through a satellite or some type of instrument that can measure radiation through like hundreds of kilometers of distance?
So it's my understanding that the United States has actually supplied a specialized aircraft to do exactly that.
Ah, okay. But are they publishing or releasing results, measurements on this information?
I have not seen anyone that's put out a comprehensive report, but my guess is that will be coming in the next few days because resources from other countries are starting to arrive to help with the sampling and the data. I know that we now have this aircraft available from the United States.
Yes.
I know that the International Atomic Agency, Energy Agency, has their teams that are arriving in Japan. So there will be a lot more teams that will be able to collect samples and do monitoring. And I'm confident that in the next week or so, that we'll start to get those findings published. As you know, I mean, we can criticize TEPCO and the government, and I think fairly so.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is, it's not just a nuclear catastrophe. We have extreme devastation in those areas, so it's very difficult to even move around, as you know.
Yeah, I know.
Which is, and of course, a lot of resources have been lost with respect to telephone lines and cellular telephone towers.
Yeah.
So it's I think that's making it extra difficult for the response teams to get organized and for this data to be made available.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of panic for the misunderstanding about the harmlessness at the moment of this radiation. That's why people are like, they don't want to get involved in many cases. Yeah.
Well, and I think part of the problem is if you feel like the company or the government are not being transparent, then you think they're hiding something. Yeah. So what happens is they actually hurt themselves because when they tell the truth, people don't believe it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But again, for your friends that are in Tokyo, and like I said, certainly where you're located, to the best of my ability, from the data that I have seen and what limited data is out there,
Yeah.
there's no concern at the moment.
Okay. One concern and one question I have about the design of these reactors is why do they make them at ground level? Why don't they make it like 200 feet underground or something like that? It could be safer, easier to contain. Because this is like
that I honestly can't explain. I mean, I really didn't have any familiarity with this power plant until this happened, and it is quite puzzling to see a lot of the infrastructure so low.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this tsunami was quite a large one, but it didn't even look like the plant would survive a small one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
So I think that's, as a citizen, I think that's a fair question to ask the government.
Yeah.
And I would think that it should be a requirement that any other plant that is in a similar situation would either be shut down or not allowed to restart until there were changes made to protect the plant, either through construction of seawall barriers or by moving some of the more critical systems higher up.
Or lower, underground.
Well, underground might be problematic as well, depending on how well you're able to seal things. The problem, of course, is diesels need exhaust. Things need cooling, but clearly, if you look at the location of this plant and where some key components are,
yes,
it doesn't look like it could survive much of a tsunami at all.
Yeah,
much less the one that we had.
Yeah, it's the problems in design of the structure that created the whole problem too. About the radiation, well, the radiation now it's pointing to the sea, right, to the Pacific. It's going to definitely affect sea life, right?
Somebody asked that question, which we tried to answer today, and again, without any data, it's hard to give an exact answer. But again, my feeling would be, except in the immediate vicinity of the plant, that because of the geometric expansion and how much water's in the ocean and the fact that the currents cause the water to move, I don't think the concentration in the water is going to be of any concern. So I would doubt that there would be any impact whatsoever beyond the immediate vicinity of the plant.
I understand. Going back to Chernobyl, from a report I read, it said that the reactor meltdown provoked an explosion that launched a radiation up to 3,000 feet. How did that explosion occur?
Well, there were a couple of factors with Chernobyl. First, that was a graphite moderated reactor.
Yeah.
And all of the power plants in the Western world are water-cooled, water-moderated reactors.
Yes.
And I gave a brief explanation in one of the interviews, but in the RMBK reactor, which is what Chernobyl was, it's inherently unstable.
Yeah.
And in a water-cooled reactor, it's inherently stable. So, or I should say, a water-moderated reactor is inherently stable.
Yeah.
And the way that works is, in order when you have a fission, the neutrons that are generated